Welcome to today's lesson on reflex responses, where we will explore the fascinating ways our bodies react rapidly and automatically to certain stimuli. In today's lesson, we will first understand that reflex responses are rapid automatic responses to stimuli that do not involve the conscious part of the brain. Then, we will delve into the structure of a reflex arc, which is the pathway that these reflexes take. Finally, we will learn about synapses and how an impulse is passed between neurons. So far, you have learned about the structure and function of the nervous system. This foundational knowledge included the components of the nervous system and their roles in transmitting signals throughout the body. Building on this, today's lesson will advance our biological understanding by elaborating on how reflex arcs allow for quick, involuntary actions that are crucial for our survival. Understanding reflex responses and synapses helps us appreciate the efficiency and complexity of our nervous system and its ability to protect us from harm. Let's get started. To begin, let's understand what a reflex action is. Reflex actions are rapid, automatic responses to stimuli that do not involve the conscious part of the brain. These automatic responses are essential for protection and survival, allowing animals, including humans, to react instantly to potentially harmful situations without needing time to think about them. When you touch something hot, like a stove, your hand pulls away immediately. This quick reaction happens through a pathway called a reflex arc. Let's break down how this works. Firstly, the hot stove acts as the stimulus. Next, the sensory receptors in your skin detect the heat. An electrical impulse is then generated and travels along a sensory neuron to the spinal cord or an unconscious part of the brain. In the central nervous system, CNS, usually in the spinal cord, the impulse is transmitted to a relay neuron. The relay neuron passes the impulse to a motor neuron. The motor neuron carries the impulse to an effector, which could be a muscle or a gland. In this case, the effector is a muscle in your arm. The muscle contracts, pulling your hand away from the hot surface. The entire process happens in a fraction of a second, demonstrating how the body can protect itself swiftly and automatically. There are three main types of neurons involved in a reflex arc: sensory neurons, relay neurons, and motor neurons. Sensory neurons carry signals from the receptors to the central nervous system. Relay neurons are found in the central nervous system. They transfer signals from sensory neurons to motor neurons. Motor neurons carry signals from the central nervous system to the effectors, such as muscles or glands, which then carry out a response. For example, your hand muscles contracting to move away from the hot stove, or a gland producing a chemical. Neurons are not directly connected to each other. They communicate via gaps called synapses. Here's how the signal travels across a synapse. When an electrical impulse reaches the end of a neuron, it triggers the release of chemicals called neurotransmitters. These neurotransmitters diffuse across the synapse, the gap between neurons. The neurotransmitters bind to receptor sites on the next neuron, triggering a new electrical impulse to begin in that neuron. In today's lesson, we explored the concept of reflex responses, which are rapid and automatic responses to stimuli that bypass the conscious part of the brain. We learned that reflexes help protect the body from harm by enabling quick reactions to certain stimuli. We discussed the structure of a reflex arc, which includes the sensory neuron, relay neuron, and motor neuron, forming a pathway for the impulse to travel from a receptor to an effector. A receptor detects a stimulus and sends an impulse through a sensory neuron to the relay neuron in the spinal cord. The relay neuron then transmits this impulse to a motor neuron, which carries the impulse to an effector, usually a muscle or gland, prompting an immediate response. We also covered the role of synapses, the junctions between neurons, where an impulse is transferred from one neuron to another. At a synapse, an electrical impulse triggers the release of neurotransmitters from the presynaptic neuron. These neurotransmitters then diffuse across the synaptic gap and bind to receptors on the postsynaptic neuron, inducing a new electrical impulse. Understanding the mechanics of reflex arcs and synapses is crucial for comprehending how our nervous system operates efficiently to protect us from danger, without the need for conscious thought. By grasping these core concepts, you now have a solid foundation for further study in human physiology and the broader topics of homeostasis and response in biology.